please. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask everybody to please silence your phones and beepers if you have them. Good evening. This board is comprised of 7 members. 4 members of the board shall constitute a quorum, and the affirmative vote of 4 members shall be necessary for the adoption of any motion. If only 4 members of the board are present, an applicant may request and be entitled to a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. If a matter is continued due to a lack of quorum, the chairperson or secretary of the board may set a special meeting to consider such matter. In the event that 4 votes are not obtained, an applicant, except in the case of a comprehensive plan amendment, may request a continuance or allow the application to proceed to the City Commission without a recommendation. Pursuant to Resolution Number 2021-118, the City of Coral Gables has returned to traditional in-person meetings. However, the Planning and Zoning Board has established the ability for the public to provide comments virtually. For those members of the public who are appearing on Zoom and wish to testify, you must... Whoa. The court reporters...
somebody fell.
Yeah, it was just the table.
Just the table.
Woke us all up, didn't it?
Woke me up.
Okay, let's go ahead. However, the Planning and Zoning Board has established the ability for the public to provide comments virtually. Continuing on, for those members of the public who are appearing on Zoom and wish to testify, you must be visible to the court reporter to be sworn in. Otherwise, if you speak without being sworn in, your comments may not have evidentiary value. Lobbyist registration and disclosure. Any person who acts as a lobbyist must register with the city clerk as required pursuant to city code. As chair, and I officially call the meeting of the City of Coral Gables Planning and Zoning Board of March 8th, 2023 to order. The time is 6:03. Jill, please call the roll.
Robert Behar. Here. Claudia Miró. She requested to be excused. Julio Gabriel.
Here.
Luis Revuelta. Vinnie Torre. He also requested to be excused. Chip Withers.
I'm here.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, one housekeeping measure, because this is a purely legislative item, we don't need to swear any witnesses in tonight.
Thank you. Notice regarding ex parte communication. Please be advised that this board is quasi-judicial board, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communication and site visits. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of a quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the board. If anyone made any contact with a board member regarding an issue before the board member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication and the party who originated the communication. Also, if a board member conducted a site visit specifically related to the case before the board member must also disclose such visit. In either case, the board member must state on the record whether the ex parte communication and or site visit will affect the board member's ability to impartially consider the evidence to be presented regarding the matter. The board member should also state that his or her decision will be based on substantial competent evidence and testimony presented on the record today. Does any member of the board have such communication and or site visit to disclose at this time?
No.
We're going to skip the swearing in because of what you have just stated. Yep. Zoom platform participants. I will ask any person wishing to speak on tonight's agenda item, please open your chat and send a direct message to Jill Menendez stating you would like to speak before the board and include your full name. Jill will call you when it's your turn. I ask you to be concise for the interest of time. Phone platform participants. After Zoom platform participants are done, I will ask phone participants to comment on tonight's agenda item. I will also ask you to be concise for the interest of time. First, we have the approval of the minutes of February 8th, 2023. Did everybody get a chance to review those?
Yes, motion to approve.
We have a motion. Julio made a second. Any comments? No. Call the roll, please.
Julio Gabriel.
Yes.
Chip Withers.
Yes.
Robert Behar.
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes. The procedure we'll use for tonight, first we'll have the identification of the agenda item by Mr. Caller. Then we'll have the presentation by the applicant, in this case is the city. Then we'll go ahead and open it for public comment. First, we'll open it in chamber, then Zoom platform, and then phone line platform, at which time I'll then close the public comment. We'll have a board discussion, and then a motion, more discussion if necessary, and a second of motion. Board's final comments, and then a board, and then a vote, sorry. Mr. Caller, if you'd please read the first item into the agenda.
Yes.
And welcome back, by the way.
Pardon? Oh, thank you. It's nice to be back. Item E1, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Article 10, parking, Section 10-110, amount of required parking, adding parking exemption for newly enclosed roof deck on existing office buildings, providing for severability, repealer, codification, and an effective date.
Missing comma.
There's a little misprint here on the title, but I also think the title, for purposes of the city commission, we probably need to tweak it a little, because it should say as of the
Okay, that's fine.
date.
We can do
So
that.
we can do that. So it'll say that, to be clear, that as of,
February
February-
9, 2021.
right.
Yes. Okay, Jennifer Garcia, City Planner. This is a proposed text amendment sponsored by a commissioner. The text amendment is exempting parking for an office building currently occupied and permitted as of February 9, 2021, rooftop amenity, like a gym or some kind of after-hour kitchen facility or something that right now is open air. So what he's proposing, they are proposing, is that you could enclose that space without triggering the parking requirement. I'm not going to keep going on and on and on, because I'm sure there's questions. I don't want to think I can explain it very well. Yes.
And that amenity will be strictly, based on what I read, for the use of that building only.
Correct.
It's
Yes.
amenity to the office building.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the other question, we're going back to February 9th of what year, 2021?
2021, because that's the date that the zoning code update was codified, was adopted. And during that adoption, there were lots of changes to parking, the parking minimums. A lot of them were just streamlined, as well as the option to remote park for any new construction was also created and allowed. The mixed-use zoning regulations were also implemented at that time.
When you say rooftop, it's an open rooftop or it can be an enclosed?
So right now it would be open air, and they would want to enclose it. Right now, the way the zoning code reads, it would trigger the parking.
Okay.
So
Can you give us an
this is
example?
proposing that they can enclose it without triggering parking.
Can you give an example of what you mean by closing? What would they have to do to enclose it?
If they have like a roof and they have maybe a kitchen right there next to the roof, maybe probably next to a stair,
I
they could be
guess
able to enclose it, put glass or whatever
Okay.
makes sense, whatever BOA will approve.
what I was getting at
That'd be
is
enclosed.
if they're going to be going through enclosure, then they got to meet code and requirements to be able to enclose. They're going to have to go before the building department.
Yes.
And they're going to have to do structural calculations that the
They'll have to
enclosure can
pull
hold it.
permit, and zoning will review it, making sure that's not going beyond the height that's allowed and beyond the FAR that's allowed for that building.
Okay, so,
Should
and
specify.
also.
This is just a parking exemption.
Okay, and also with wind mitigation and so forth, because you
Right.
can't just put glass up there and so forth.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, I just
But,
want
but can you add some additional roofed area and
As
enclose?
long as they have FAR to play with, then I don't see why not.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, perfect, thank you.
And as long as it's only being used for amenity.
Right,
So
right.
you can't have office spaces,
So let me give you a few examples. And so if I have a spa,
office use only.
huh?
Office use
No,
only.
in the office building, that's my question. So if there's a use within the building, like a spa within the building, the spa couldn't take over that.
No.
Okay.
It has to be used as an amenity to that office space.
It could be a restaurant.
No.
It can't. That's not an amenity. So what's an amenity?
Amenity would be like a gym.
A gym, not a spa. Okay. So a gym. Say you had a gym.
But you
The
could do
gym
a
is only
spa
being used
if-
by the workers.
You could do a spa if it's used strictly for the office building.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
thinking of
yeah.
a spa as
When
a
you say the office
commercial-
building, I mean, that would be the people within the building itself.
Yes.
Not a specific office itself, but at the entire
Right, they
building.
can't have patrons from the outside.
They couldn't take
use it.
membership from outside.
Right.
They could take, but you could take membership from what's inside.
I'm not sure how these offices are set up, but I think it's part of their kind of their HOA that they're paying to be a suite within the
If I
office building.
hired a spa director and wanted to offer spa services to people inside my building, I would assume that would be an amenity
Right,
that I could offer.
exactly. Yes, it would be.
So I could take that top floor and turn it into a gym or a spa.
As long as it's already occupied and permitted before February 9, 2021.
Okay.
So you can't just keep adding on floors. It has to be already being occupied as a space.
So if I had a swimming pool in a mixed-use building, or does it have to be 100%?
Office building
It
only.
has to be, so it can't be the office component of a mixed-use building.
Right. Only office building.
But what I'm not understanding, what you're saying is it has to be occupied.
Has to have accessibility already up there.
There's a structure that has to be there that you
And
could
already being
enclose.
used as an amenity.
Okay.
But not the same amenity necessarily.
Not necessarily. Yeah. If they want to, right now, maybe if it's open, maybe they're doing some kind of,
So if it's a rooftop garden,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just some planters up there and some trees up there and some walkways up there and maybe a hammock
it's
up
used
there.
as a meditation space, I guess.
And they
for-
wanted to turn that into a cafe for the building, they could do that.
As long as it's already being used as an amenity space.
I understand, but I'm
and they're
coming
already
in-
accessed up there.
Okay, so I'm visiting that building now. I'm not a tenant, but I'm visiting you, who is a tenant. I can go up there and have lunch with this guy now.
Oh, no. Oh, the
Yes.
client, if
Yeah,
you're the
I'm trying
client,
to-
if you're the client.
I mean, this is a slippery
You're
slope.
the client, sure.
Yeah. Because that's his amenity for his building and you're his guest.
And I'm his guest, so I'm using that amenity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Because you
there's,
can now, theoretically. You can go up
No,
there
I-
and sit down and meditate with your,
Now, I'm
with
a-
your clients.
so now I have 10,000 square feet that's an open patio area, and I want to turn it into a 10,000 square foot restaurant for the building.
For the
I can do
building.
that. And no additional parking requirement for guests that come in to eat up there and anything like that.
If you really want to do that.
But my question here is, you said an existing space. We know that 99.9% of the buildings that, was done, you never have an existing space that's not unoccupied that you could enclose. So this would allow, from what I'm trying to understand, if I have a 10,000 square foot roof area, I could add square footage up there if it's only for the use of the building.
As long as you still have the FAR allowed. I mean,
Yeah,
10,000
as long as
square
you have
feet is a
FAR
lot of
allowed.
square footage.
But
Depending on the size of the office building.
Can
You may
you,
not have that available with your FAR that you're allowed to have.
can you then go out and get additional FAR from a donor site?
No,
If it, you would not be able
I
to.
don't think so. I think we need to keep it
So
staying within what you're allowed to have, which is 3.5 FAR.
So what's the intent of this? I mean, what's the big picture? Why is this needed? What's the benefit for everybody?
The intent is that to create nicer spaces for almost kind of like encouraging people to come back to work and have nicer office spaces. I guess there's an influx of interest of offices that are looking to renovate their office space and offer something nice for their office workers to encourage them to come back.
I think it's a great idea. We just finished a building in Aventura that has an incredible, amenity spaces on the roof, and people do use it, and it's a great amenities. And in that particular building, the rents are much higher than adjacent building because of the amenities they do provide. So I think this is a great idea, and it would encourage, I think, people to come and be able to use for whether it's a fitness center or whatever. I don't foresee doing the restaurants.
You just seem like a Zen zone, basically.
No, and like a gym. They may have some other areas, some other spaces that are gonna be usable. So, as long as which I understand now, you have to have sufficient FAR left over in your building to be able to do, these spaces. I think it's a great idea.
And this does require a covenant to make sure that's enforceable. If we start seeing that people are having parties and they're not really working at the office, they're just renting out spaces, then we have a way to say code enforcement, you need to go.
Well, no, that's definitely going to happen. I mean, the building's definitely going to rent that to someone to have a party up there.
The
Let's not.
tenant or that office
not be,
space is going to want to have a.
Oh, but think about it. There's one on Ponce, on the Circle, that they use the rooftop.
Yeah.
And it's great. I think
No,
it's
I
a
don't-
great
I don't
way
have
to
a- I don't have
use.
a problem with that, but if I'm an office building, I need to monetize it. If I'm going to put money into it, I'm assuming.
And it could be new construction also.
No, so this has only existing buildings can take
So a
advantage
new
of this,
construction
of
building
this
cannot
parking
utilize,
exemption.
so a new building
Because
that's
new,
being,
because new construction, you can always plan and make the parking work. You have options of remote parking and other options.
so you're
This
limiting
is just
it
for existing buildings.
only existing buildings?
Prior to February 9, 2021.
But if the idea is to bring people in to work and to use the amenities, why are you restricting new?
Because if you're
buildings?
designing a building right now to encourage people to work and make this fantastic office building, you can plan ahead and
Right,
park for
but
it.
they would
if
not
that's
be,
what you
able.
want to do.
But they would not be able to utilize the parking requirement.
And exactly, and that's you're penalizing those new buildings because then you're requiring that they provide additional parking spaces.
It's not penalizing, you're helping those that are already existing
Well,
and making the existing structure more
I mean, the way
viable.
I thought the issue, as I understand it, was that the parking under the new updated code is more liberal, and it's easier for buildings to achieve compliance, whereas the older buildings didn't have that option.
Right, they had higher parking requirements, they
Do
couldn't
you-
do mixed use, yes.
do you have an example of what would be for an old building versus a new building?
I
and
mean, I
parking
think you
requirement?
brought up the Zuby building
Right.
that has a rooftop amenity right now. You could look at enclosing more of that space.
I mean, I don't know the parking ratio between one and the other. Listen, at the end of the day, I think this is doing, for some of those buildings, an added, benefit. I just see that the new buildings, you're gonna have to provide additional parking versus that, but,
So is there any restriction on the building owner not to lease the space out? Because you're giving him additional,
The restriction would be that the covenant that's traveling with that property says
say
you can
what?
only use that space for an amenity to the office.
I know, but my question is, does that mean
So they
they-
can't apply here and say, I want to be a rentable party place, for lack of a better, entertainment use, because we'll catch it here from the
I'm
zoning.
talking about for their existing tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Can they lease that space out to as part of the annual lease? For
To their
to-
tenants,
Yes.
yes.
So it's giving them additional square footage for a specific tenant. They
Well,
could do that if they
I
wanted to.
mean, I'm not sure how it works. I'm not sure if they're leasing it out or if the office suites, the office spaces are reserving that space to use.
whether it's lease or
Reservation
reserve.
or whatever, yeah.
If you are a tenant and you want to have your Christmas party up there,
Right.
you're able to do it.
Right.
Well, it would be,
Which is fine.
that would be viewed as an amenity. If you're leasing it out, then it's not an amenity.
In a minute, that's
Right.
my
So
whole
the
point.
ordinance, the ordinance specifically provides that it be an amenity.
Well, but I tell you what, you're gonna have, if somebody's gonna have a party, somebody have to clean and pay for the cleaning and pay for all that. So that's, you're gonna generate some revenues from that. So at
Right,
the
I
end of it,
mean, you're right. If you're gonna have a Christmas party up there, it's an amenity to the tenant, but the tenant can say, well, I wanna lease that out and add more office space to it.
Right. No, you
no,
can't
no,
do
no,
that.
no, no,
It has to be
we know it's
strictly
for
amenity.
amenities only.
Right.
Correct.
But by the same token, let's say it's a marketing company. So the marketing company wants to go ahead and is a tenant in the building and says, once a month, I want to throw in my amenity a get-together or a party for all my sponsors, or this new product I'm promoting. My business is now promoting XYZ product. So I want to throw a party this month for XYZ party and invite 100 people over to my amenity. Next month, that marketing company says, now I'm promoting product IGY, and I want to do this. They can continue to do that under the way I read this.
Yeah, 'cause it means being treated like a conference room, like a large conference room that you already have
Yes-
in your
yes
space
and no.
anyway. It's just much nicer.
But Ivy, I mean, you're right, that could be a possibility, but at the end of the day, it's an amenity for the building, and they're using it. And the truth of the matter, I think, I look at it from the point of view that the roof will look much better if it's enhanced than having, ugly roof, so.
So my original question, if I wanted to put a leisure area up there and I wanted to hire Starbucks as a vendor up there to serve coffee, am I allowed to charge Starbucks rent?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Because they would need to have a certificate of use to be up there.
I'm sorry?
They would need to have a certificate of use to be up there, to be able to serve the patrons.
So if I
So
want
they
to
go
put a
to
juice
zoning,
bar up there and I want to hire a
Zoning
third-party
won't issue them a
contractor.
CU because it's not an amenity space.
So there,
The
it's not,
cafe, it should be on the ground floor.
so there's no revenue derived from the amenity space?
Regularly, no.
No, on our ordinance, is there an opportunity for a building to derive revenue from the space?
I mean, with
'Cause
that.
that's not what an amenity is. That's what
right.
I'm trying to get at.
Right.
So it precludes,
I mean, I'm thinking maybe if they had a kitchen and a bar, maybe there's a cash bar.
But that's
It's
not
not
really.
like you're having a company from the outside come in and run that space.
I'm just saying I don't want it to turn into a food court.
Yeah.
No,
That's
but
all I'm saying. And
And from the zoning part, as far as like anyone coming in and requesting a CU, they won't be able to issue that
That's it.
because
At
they're
that point,
saying this.
otherwise, it will be an illegal use.
Right.
So that you will not be able, you may
has to
have
be
a
only an
prep
amenity.
kitchen for that as an amenity, but you cannot be, conducting business from up there.
What I'd like to do is open it up before we proceed for public comment. Jill, do we have anybody?
We have Surami Cabrera, Development Services Director, that would like to speak.
Okay. Do we have anybody
No.
in the chamber? No? In Zoom?
Surami?
Hi, this is Surami, Development Services Director. I just wanted to offer something, maybe it will help clarify. The only difference between the way the code reads today and the change we're making is that today, if you have a rooftop use, whatever it is, and it's open, and now you decide to enclose it, if you enclose it, it has to have parking. If you leave it open, it doesn't have parking, but the use is exactly the same. So the only difference is, and it came up because we do have a building that they have a rooftop amenity, and what they want to do is enclose a portion of it because it gets really, really hot up there and they want to be able to use it year round. So just because they enclose it, it has a roof, it has furniture, it has all these things, but just putting a glass enclosure that will open up, when the weather is nice and have big glass door openings, all of a sudden triggers, now you need parking. So did it really make sense that you have a rooftop use? If it's open air, it doesn't require parking. And then if it's enclosed, it does, because it's the same exact use. So the idea was to basically consolidate those two things, that it shouldn't be whether it's open or enclosed, whether it triggers parking or not. I don't know if that helps.
Surami, may I ask which building this is?
What's the name of the building, Jennifer, that brought it to us?
I think it's City Hall.
No, it's Shoma, the Shoma office building
Shoma on the park.
on Catalonia, isn't it? Oh,
If you know, if you've been there, you'll see. And I visited the building. They have a rooftop use that's open air, but there's a trellis, there's columns that were part of the building columns that came up for this rooftop use. The only difference now is that, this is Miami and it gets really hot. And in order to be able to enjoy that space year round, they would like to air condition it when necessary. So they came to us to enclose it and we said, oh, now you need parking. But when we looked at it, we thought, well, why? The use is exactly the same. So a commissioner decided to sponsor because they went to the commissioner and a commissioner decided to sponsor it because the only thing it changes is that there's an existing rooftop use. People are up there, having their drinks, whatever it is, whatever the permitted use was, whatever that, because most roofs will not, you won't be able to, it's not easy to change a roof from a roof space to an occupiable space just because of the building code and the loading. The loading is very different for a roof than it is for an assembly space. This roof was permitted that way. It was always intended to or whatever it is. And they want to just enclose a portion of it within existing columns. That's all it is.
I think it's simple.
And looking at it more closely, did it make sense to have to require parking in that type of, in this type of, in this change to a space?
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Surami. Do we have anybody else, Joe?
No,
Anybody on phone platform?
no.
At this time, I'll go ahead and close it for public comment.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Robert.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Julio. Any discussion? No? Call the roll, please.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Julio Gabriel,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Avi Eisenstadt.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Since we only have one item tonight, we have motion to adjourn by Robert. Is there a?
We do have a discussion item.
Very, very quick. We need to reschedule our April meeting due to holidays.
Okay.
So we have options of, April 4th, 17th, or 20th.
April, when are
April 4th, 17th.
It was supposed to be the 12th, right?
Yes.
17th is a Monday, and the 20th is a Thursday.
when are the city elections?
The 11th, I believe.
We should do it on the 11th.
I'm expecting one item.
Would you like to do April 4th? It's the beginning of the month.
I'm good with either day.
Fine with it.
What day?
April 4th?
What day?
April 4th is a Tuesday. Does that work for everybody? We get it out of the way at the beginning of April?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Works.
Chip,
Got it.
got it? April 4th it is for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Robert, second by Julio. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
6:29.
Wow, this is a record.
Somebody said 15 minutes.
I did.